Hey guys, what's going on? Winter Wolf here. Welcome back. Appreciate you guys checking in. We're doing She-Hulk episode 6 today. And guys, the thumbnail is no joke. This is by far and away the worst episode of any program I've ever watched. That includes Rings of Power. That includes schlock from the 80s and 90s. This series is beyond the point of not even spinning its wheels now. There's really nothing to it. These are essentially comedy sketches that these guys threw together that have absolutely no bearing on larger stories as they go. The runtime for this is about 22 minutes and Jen's only in it for about 12 because this isn't even her show. We've progressed past it being a cameo show with other Marvel heroes that you probably wanted to see more than this version of She-Hulk anyway. But now this is becoming the Mallory and NIkki show, and because they used Pug last week, now it's the NIkki and Mallory show. Nothing makes any sense. People do things that are completely out of the scope of what they would do. But also, as the thumbnail points out, and I think this is an important part to point out, you know, in terms of defending against the misogyny accusations that reviewers and critics of the show often get, is on this show, every woman is now written as poorly as every man is written on the show. So at least they're doling out a little bit of equal treatment. But the gist of it is, in the episode is, as you can see here, Jen's getting an invitation. Long story short, it's an old high school friend that she hasn't talked to in forever is inviting her to the wedding, and she needs to get set up as the bridesmaid. That, of course, sets Jen up to get all excited. She's packing. She's got a long weekend ahead of her here. We get a reference to some of the dresses that the guy made in the previous episode for her. We probably won't see him again because she allegedly is in possession of the She-Hulk suit, and she says here she'll never wear it. So I think my prediction from earlier, a couple of videos ago, that you probably won't see this until probably the penultimate or the finale episode of the series. So don't look forward to that. Right here we have the fourth wall break for the episode where Jen's proudly telling the audience that, did you think they were going to waste a whole episode on a wedding? Yep. And then they do. And you don't even get really to see much of the wedding anyway, and the shenanigans that go down. It's nothing worth freaking out if you missed it. It's kind of lame, really. And this part right here kind of chaps my ass as a reviewer. I'm not even gonna lie. And I'm a shade under 6 feet tall. Jen Walters drives a Prius on this show. When she's She-Hulked up, she's like 6'6", 6'7". This chick isn't fitting in a Prius as the She-Hulk by a stretch. Yeah, people are gonna say, oh, she transformed on the way as she was getting out. Like, dude, I'd bang my head off on my infinity every time I'm getting out at the height that I'm at. So this behemoth of a superhero is giant by comparison to me, and she's in a Prius. So no, these are the continuity things that people bitch about in the show. Like how she goes through changes of clothing that shouldn't fit her in one form or the other, but they somehow do or they don't, depending on the scene that they're in. And we'll get to that because there's a good one that comes up later. So we all know there's a few, if you've been to a wedding, and if you get to a certain age, you've been to a few, right? There's a few things you absolutely can't do when going to a wedding, right? The first thing is you never want to get drunk enough to ruin it for the new couple. You can't do that. The second rule is you probably should bring a gift, or at least have one stashed in the car in case, they might have said no gifts or whatever, but it's good karma, trust me. Have a gift ready. But the third thing, and probably the most important thing you never do, is you never upstage the bride on her big day. And that means, fellas, don't propose to your girl at any point at the reception, before the wedding, at the after party, and just don't do it. Pick another weekend. Trust me, this is a nickel's worth of free advice. Your woman will appreciate you not doing it. That way her day isn't tied to somebody else's day. And the couple actually getting married won't be thinking you were trying to steal their thunder. So just don't do it. So Jen Walters proves again that she's about the worst human being on the planet. When we can see her rolling through, she's entering the pre-reception reception. She comes in as She-Hulk. Like, this is a 57,000 times larger infraction in terms of total twat wafflery than coming in and wearing a white dress to somebody else's wedding. Like, you're coming in as a media sensation and taking all the attention off the bride. That's a dickbag move. And what makes it a double dickbag move for this character is we've had to listen to her bitch and complain about people only liking her because she in She-Hulk form. So now she's rolling through somebody else's wedding, somebody she hasn't seen in a long time, and she's doing this. Dude, the writers, you've done this character no favor. None. Like, stop. And that look just about sums it up perfectly. Like, that's the woman that's getting married, seeing She-Hulk get out of the car and roll up into her party. Like, basically she disinvites her as She-Hulk and tells her, I really need you to be Jen Walters. which you'll see a little bit how that turns out later. There you go, uncomfortable boob hug right there. It's appreciated. We get a bunch of scenes here where Jen Walters, for some reason, I don't know, maybe she's on the spectrum. If she is, she needs to get off of it. Shout out to Cobra Kai on that joke. She's basically treated like dog shit by everybody in this episode for some reason. I don't remember She-Hulk ever being the butt of jokes in any of the I picked up a few along the way when I was younger, but she was always the sassy DA who stood up against like the kingpin and violent crime and didn't take any shit. And then she became the She-Hulk and became better at that. She's doing the high school wallflower thing here where like she comes in, you know, she gets paired with the weirdest groomsman, you know, to do the walk-in entrance to the wedding. All of the other bridesmaids basically treat her like the hired help. They get her to do laundry, they get her to like bust dishes and tables and shit. It's cringe, but it's not like office cringe where you get the laugh out of it. All right, now this is where we jump into the B plot, because this show is so strapped for content that they can barely fill 23 minutes an episode. We've now deviated squarely out of She-Hulk territory and into the Mallory and Nikki show. So the gentleman you got here in front of you is Mr. Immortal. Mr. Immortal, as some of you might know, can't die. The angle here for the legal stuff is that Mr. Immortal has tried to get himself out of being married 8 or 9 times to 8 or 9 different people. More on that later. And he's coming in because they're all suing him for alimony. In this scene, his lawyer and the paralegal, for some reason, lambasted him for a solid 20 to 30 seconds about not being able to understand women, being afraid of confrontation. They basically talk over each other and just destroy him to the point where he just decides finally that he's had enough. I'm just gonna line it up perfectly for you guys, but it's worth it, because this is how I feel like everybody is, the viewers of this show, if you've stuck around. I'll run it for a few. Yeah, he throws himself out of the building, like to get away from these two nagging ass bitches, because that's what they both are. It's sad to see what's happened here. Like, I had a hope that at least Mallory Book would have been a competent lawyer who came up with creative defenses and was able to, like, you know, put on a legal show, even though the writers admitted they can't write court and trial process kind of things. But we don't have that here. Like, she basically goes full-on nag harpy on her client, who verbatim actually says, aren't you guys supposed to just like defend me and not be judgmental? And they're both like, no, we don't have to do that here. And that's coming from like the paralegal. I'd be like, you're fired, I'm the client, bring me another fucking lawyer. But no, this show is this show. So he skates, of course he's alive, he hits the car, gets up and walks away, but instead of just running away and leaving town, his dumb ass actually comes back later. I'm not even going to touch on that again, other than to say, for some reason, this show is elevating Nikki into like lawyer material. She's the one that actually devises the ultimate settlement between him and the 9 spouses that are suing him, which for some reason include a guy, even though I couldn't find any instance of Mr. Immortal ever being bi in the comics. It's like they just had to cram just enough diversity in there, despite diversity being well on display in the other 8 partners that Mr. Immortal had. That wraps up that story. They basically had Mallory in the background like, while Nikki divvies up this guy's resources and basically reaches the settlement that leaves him crying, and all the women high-fiving each other and being happy with what they got. Which for some reason, I guess this was the joke for the scene, is they actually thought that him giving one of them an apology with 20 seconds of eye contact was game. Like that was okay. That was the settlement. Just stupid. It's such therapy and fanfic from the writers. You can't even hide it at this point, how awful it is. We just move forward. She's back at the wedding here. She gets shit on by the bride. Nobody cares. Yeah, Titania's in this one. She's upset with the legal decision from an episode ago that she lost. She shows up and tries to instigate the fight. That'll come up later. That was the discussion where everybody wasn't interested in Jen being a successful lawyer. They just wanted to talk about She-Hulk and wanted to come down on her for not being married. Which is the only thing, if you talk to women of a certain age, professional women of a certain age, they hate hearing that. And I don't blame them for that at all. Like, if you want to be the career-focused person, knock yourself out. You've earned the right to do it, you know. But they lay into it really thick to the point of cringe here, and I think it takes away some of the actual authenticity of what they were, of a bona fide legit statement they were trying to make. Right? We get Jen sitting out here. This scene lasted about 30 seconds of her just sitting on the wicker bench by herself eating Chex Mix or something. Josh shows up, and Josh is actually the only normal dude on the show so far, which leads me to believe that next week he's probably going to try and R-word her or steal her blood or, you know, be a pedophile or so. Can I say that? I could probably beep that out. Or something. There'll be something to him because he was too normal. He was actually just nice. He didn't come off as a creep. He came off as like regular, charmy, flirty. And I had to actually look around and make sure I had to like recheck what I was watching because I wasn't expecting that out of this show at all. They're still talking, no big deal, no big deal. Yeah, these are the partners when they jump back to the B plot of Mr. Immortal. Completely out of place here, completely. That whole scene takes too long. They hit up the ending plot here where one of them mentions, you can probably see it down there on the frame guide. There's a website that they end up referring to at the end. Intelligentsia, it's called. It's kind of like a take on InfoWars, where it's, you know, it's the home of the cringe incels that live in their mom's basement and have never touched a boob. And that part is all cringy as fuck. It's basically filled with, it's like Reddit almost. It's probably more like Reddit than InfoWars, where it's full of anti-She-Hulk memes with headlines that are like, She-Hulk must die, we must kill her, like in world. Like, who the fuck could be saying that about a relatively unknown superhero that doesn't have any massive connections to any big events going on in universe? Like, who are the people that in this world would actually not like a new superhero in a world post-Endgame? You know what I mean? Is everybody seems to like Wanda still for some reason. I don't get it. It seems like such a ridiculous way to take the story, but it is what it is. And we get you guys out of the B plot here because it kind of just sucks. We're back at the wedding here. This miserable bitch goes and tries to make Jen do the laundry, which is hilarious. I'd like to point out something here while I have it on the frame. This is Jen here. She's in her bridesmaid dress, okay? So if we go ahead and just advance it, this is the same day. We just skipped over. That's the bride there in the frame guide. She's wearing her bridesmaid, the bridal gown. When we get back into the wedding, there's Jen in the dress. I'm just trying to find the pop-off point. Oh, this is her getting drunk and being a fool for 30-odd seconds. Single lady at the wedding. That's Nikki doing the division of resources. We got Josh being cool. She's drunk as fuck, which is not unusual for her. I think there hasn't been an episode where she hasn't been drunk. This is her post-throwing up all over the place outside because she did herself in too much with the drinky. Boom! So yeah. Titania gives her the old Friday treatment and knocks her the fuck out and then has time to look at her nails. And there's a couple of stupid-ass things to point out here right off the rip. If you remember back to the first episode, when the car was in the process of crashing and went down in the ravine, when Bruce came to, he was cut and bleeding from the car wreck, which was a little stupid, I'll give you, considering he's the one that had previously said he tried to shoot himself in banner form, but the other guy spit the bullet out. So here we got a superpowered being just absolutely levels Jen, and she's walking it off. Like she's just up. She's not hulked up yet. She's in her dress. She got knocked down. There's no bruising. There's no facial damage. That blow should have smashed her face 6 ways to Sunday, but they didn't do it. Not even a scratch. Okay. Titania's basically trying to goad her. She gets tossed around a little bit. Titania's trying to goad her into becoming She-Hulk because I guess she only wants to fight her in Hulk form. Be like, fuck that shit. If I got you in human form, I'm gonna put you down now. She's trying to talk Jen into hulking up here, and it's not working. And she's giving her the drunk back and forth. And then she says, oops, I forgot how to do it. Like, being drunk prevented her from initially just hulking up, according to the show. Makes no sense. Don't care. Right? She finally does it. She finally hulks up and she's heading in to whoop this chick's ass. But as you can see, she's still wearing the bridal gown, the bridesmaid dress. How can that be? How can this show be so oblivious to its own continuity? Do they expect me to believe that the bride reached out to the special costume maker to have her dress custom done and then brought back in? She didn't want her there as She-Hulk. This shouldn't work, but they care so little for the craft of the story that they're trying to tell. They just don't care. They just gloss over this shit and let it rip. And I hate that, because I think all these characters and the actors, they all deserve better than the garbage that they're given to work with. So they have their little do-si-do in some of the worst fight choreography you've ever seen. It's god-awful. It's over in like less than no time. That freeze frame is hilarious. I wish I could actually line that up for you. But basically, I'm actually gonna try. So basically, they have their little scuffle, and as Jen's down, Titania gets up to finish her off and slips on a catering, like ice that a caterer dropped in the scuffle, and breaks up her ears, and you can see the effed up teeth right there. So she cries like an angry child, and then she storms away. But she steals the cake or something. The bride comes in. She's super trashed. I don't get it. She apologizes and they reconcile. They hug, yada yada, douchey cousin. These two share a moment. I guarantee by the end they're gonna ship these two, because we already know Nikki is at least, they don't say if she's gay or she's bi. She did criticize hetero life, but who knows what that means for these people. But Mallory mentions that she's married and has a child, but that doesn't mean anything. We're gonna see, actually who she's married to, but I bet you bottom dollar she's also gay, and this is the representation for that. The lowdown on intelligentsia. I'm gonna skip right over that because it's stupid. They have a brief argument about whether or not to tell Jen, or if it's gonna be too much for her to handle, and why bother, why ruin her mental space. But then 10 seconds later, we got Nikki in the car on the Bluetooth calling Jen to tell her everything she just agreed that she wasn't gonna tell her. Which, whatever. Fake Fran Drescher can't be trusted. We get a scene of, I gotta get better at jumping on those guys, sorry about that. We get a scene of a plate of fries, you know what that means. It's with Josh, nobody cares. And then as we're wrapping up here, the last little segment of the show is basically a call through to a lab. The lab has the dinged syringe that came up from the alley assault in like episode 3. Here we have a better syringe, so someone's gonna take a second poke at her soon, because I think they only have like 3 left. And you hear in the background a little bit, there's somebody on like a phone call mentioning radiation. So they apparently think this is gonna be a better go of being able to get a blood sample from her. And then we wrap. That's it. We're right into the credits. There's no post or middle credits stinger for this one. And you know what? I don't care if there is or there's not. The whole show is just such a colossal wasted opportunity of taking an actual popular character from the book that embodied both the masculine and the feminine, that fans have loved for a while since the John Byrne run. We had a character that did effectively fourth wall breaking before Deadpool did it. Here it's done incompetent. There's nothing enjoyable to take away from that at all. Every character in this show, the series, is insufferable. Everybody. Mallory Book is awful. Nikki Ramos is awful. Jen Walters is awful. Jen's boss is awful. All the guys she went on dates with are awful. Her family's okay, but the cousin's a douchebag. He's just stereotypical 90s frat douche nozzle. Can't stand him. Josh, who showed up for all of 10 seconds in here, he was okay, but there was dialogue in here where it's basically pumping Jen's tires. She's like, oh, you're probably out for something amazing. And he's like, oh, I don't know, I think you're pretty great. I've seen you be great all weekend. I'm like, where was the great? You've told us things, but you haven't showed us jack shit of anything she's done. We had a 30-second clip of her dancing alone. You weren't in it. She helps no one. She offers no solutions to anybody. She doesn't go out of her way to do anything superhero related. Here, it was a personal beef that she destroyed the venue hall to execute after she got attacked, which is fine. I mean, somebody throws the punch, you're gonna handle business. But it's just more of the same. And now it's like her screen time, Jen's screen time, has decreased by a factor of like 1/3 to 1/2 for like the last 2 or 3 episodes. And I'm like, now I'm not even sure. I didn't know who the show was for at first, but now I'm not even sure whose show it is. It was Wong's for a while. It was Bruce's up front. It was Jen's in the middle for a couple of seconds. And now it's like it's Nikki's show. And the only thing less interesting to me than this She-Hulk show with Jen Walters as the star is She-Hulk by Nikki Ramos. So they're really going to get their shit together on that one. I'm glad there's only 3 more. The more I think about it, I'm glad that the Daredevil and the Kingpin stuff probably isn't going to come up until the very end. So at least whatever destruction of those characters they bring on this god-awful show is going to be minimal, and we'll always have the original Daredevil series anyway. And in fact, that's my advice, guys. If you haven't watched this, don't. Just go watch Daredevil. Find it. Watch season 1. Watch season 2. But other than that, I appreciate you guys stopping by. I don't know, this one ran a little long, but I really wanted to get the stuff on screen to actually show you guys what was going on instead of just gabbing at the shiny blue background. But if you don't mind dropping a like, commenting, if you're actually, be honest now, people, be honest. Are you still watching this show? And if you are, is it just out of morbid curiosity, or is there something you actually like in terms of plot or character, or who knows, whatever else? That's it for me. I'm gonna take off. I gotta go do a Rings of Power video because I think I want to do one. I'm gonna get the setup done because I think tomorrow is going to be pretty pivotal. And we'll see what, I'm not going to bury the lead on that. But thanks for checking in, guys. I'll see you in the next one.